Hello, Environmental Charter Middle School. I am Kehinde Wiley, and I wanted to send you guys a huge hello and also to share with you some of my work. And I understand that you guys sent me a few questions, so I want to get to answering some of your questions and then also maybe telling you a bit about myself and about my work. I am really happy to be able to talk to you guys today because as someone who studied art in school from the time that I was like 11 years old, art has been always really important for me, from learning how to paint, to draw, to even inspiring a type of confidence, a feeling of like being proud of myself, being able to do something well. I think it's really important, and I encourage all of you guys to, those of you who have a passion for painting or music or singing, the creative arts are incredibly important. And I encourage all of you guys to stay with it and to find whatever it is that you guys enjoy doing, find some meaning in, no matter how big or how small. I think it really means a lot, not only to you, but sometimes to the world beyond. And I think that that's probably where we should start, because the first question that I got from you guys was, what was the most meaningful influence in my work? And to be honest with you, the first work that I saw was when I was about 11 years old. That's when I started learning how to paint. And I used to go to museums in LA, at the Los Angeles County Museum, and I saw the work of an artist whose name I want you guys to all remember. His name is Kerry James Marshall. His work was the first painting that I saw of African American men on the walls of that museum, and it took me by storm. It really inspired me. The colors, the composition, everything about the paintings were just so life-changing. What I saw in that painting also was something bigger than that. It was the idea that people who look like me could actually be on the walls of one of those great museums. It made me feel like the stuff that I wanted to do with my life was possible. Before that, I had never really thought about being an artist seriously, but it was after I saw the work of Kerry James Marshall. I want you to remember his name, look up his work, check it out online. After seeing his work, I really started to explore more deeply, like not only what I paint, but how to paint it, how to make my art really relate to the world around me. Much of the work that I do is about the world around me. It's about the people that I see every day. It's about people who are minding their own business, trying to get to work, and I stop them in the streets and I say, you know what? Do you mind sparing a minute of your time? Most people say no, unfortunately. I guess it's because living in a big city, you're busy and you're trying to go everywhere. And like, who is this strange person asking me to paint their portrait? But for those people who do say yes, the big payoff is that later many of those paintings are visible in museums, in collections all over the world. And it takes this really casual moment when someone is minding their own business, trying to get to work, and you turn that into something miraculous, something big, something historic. And the history is a big part of it. Most of the people in my paintings are taking on the poses from old historical paintings. And I suppose that is why they look a little bit from the past, but they also look very much today. It's like the way that people dress right now. It's the way that people feel in the 21st century, but it's also borrowed from paintings from the past. What I'd like to do now is to look at the second question here. How old were you when you realized that you wanted to be an artist? So, as I said, I started studying art when I was 11. But then I started to realize that most of the people around me had stopped continuing art. You know, as we're kids, we all were creative at something. All of us knew that we could sing. All of us knew that we could dance. All of us knew that we could draw in some little way. But then I started to realize that a lot of my friends stopped, and I kept on going. And I suppose that was around the age of 13 or 14. And so anytime anyone asks me the question, when did you realize you wanted to be an artist? I always ask them, when did you stop? When did you stop knowing that you were an artist? I think that we all know that we're artists, but some of us continue doing it. In our younger years, we all do it. We all dance and feel perfectly fine. We don't have to be professionals at it. We don't have to be professional painters or professional singers, but there is a moment where you kind of lose that sense of play with it. And I think I kept it going. I held on to it. I had that sense of mystery and discovery constantly with my work. So I suppose, if anything, I would encourage each of you to hold on to that. Hold on to that sense of mystery. Hold on to that sense of possibility, that sense that, you know what, I don't have to be 100% perfect at this, but it allows me to communicate who I am and express myself, and it allows me to feel like I have a connection to other art that's out there, other songs, other ways of moving and thinking and being that are out there. So it's a good question. I'm not going to be able to get to all of the questions today because unfortunately there's a huge time difference between where I am. I'm currently in West Africa, in Senegal, and where you guys are in Inglewood, California. Who is your favorite artist? I mentioned Kerry James Marshall, but I would also mention Mickalene Thomas. She's a really good artist. She is someone that I look up to, someone who happens to be a very dear friend of mine, and someone who makes portraits that are personal, but also kind of over the top. She does portraits of herself, which we call self-portraits, and then she also does portraits of famous individuals. But one thing that she does differently is that she takes jewels, little pieces of diamonds, little pieces of cosmetic jewelry, and glues those onto the canvas to create these glowing, spectacular images. So that's another artist I encourage you guys to look up, Mickalene Thomas. And what you'll find about her work is that it's really familiar, but it's also kind of mysterious and different in a way. And I guess that's the cool thing about art, is that you can take, I suppose, materials that no one really thinks about it in terms of art and turn them into something that's really quite surprising. Mickalene Thomas is a really great artist, and she belongs to the tradition of painting, but she's also carving out a space for herself that's really like right now. Let's see, another question here. How can a young person follow their dreams? You know, one of the things that I've been talking about since we first began this conversation is about how art is about surprises, and it's about pushing yourself into places that are a little bit unknown. The best art to me is the art that makes me re-examine life in a way that, you know, things that I thought were once kind of familiar, it shakes it up a bit. And it can be as simple as painting people who are around you and placing them in different subjects and placing them in different contexts. I think that in terms of finding inspiration, you have to find it at home first. You have to find it within something that's close to you first. Looking far and wide is one thing, and I encourage you to study as much as you can, and to travel as much as you can, and read as much as you can. But also spend time slowing down, paying attention to those things that are right in front of you. Some of the most beautiful music, some of the most beautiful painting is about the familiar things, about the people that you know, about the things that you're familiar with. Creating something beautiful about something that's seemingly small is really quite inspirational and a little bit easier to get access to than trying to create something that's large and sweeping. Inspiration comes in the most unpredictable ways. So I wouldn't beat myself up if I were, you know, having moments of writer's block or having moments where you can't really figure out exactly what it is that you want to say. Inspiration is something that will come to you with time. And it's not something that you can build as though it were a muscle. It's something that simply lands. And when it lands, You know what is there. Next question. The beautiful tension created with color and the rich patterns from your background weaving into the foreground of your paintings literally makes them dance. I'm wondering if some of your background work is influenced by African print and patterns found in symbols from Ghana or Kente cloth. So that's a good question. The question has to do with what the inspiration is for the backgrounds of my paintings. And I think I can take where I am as a good place to start with that question. Currently, I am in Senegal, in the west coast of Africa. In fact, I'm in a city called Dakar, which is actually the westernmost place that you can go in all of Africa. To go from here to New York, for example, would be, I don't know, roughly a 7.5 to 8 hour flight, depending on the wind. And that's the quickest way to get from the east coast of the United States to the west coast of Africa. I say all that to say that I'm in a different place, in a place that has an extraordinary history, an extraordinary and rich, varied tradition of creating textiles. So much of what I do is I go into the markets and I go out shopping, trying to find different fabrics. And then I photograph those fabrics. I download them into my computer. I work them through Photoshop, increasing certain colors, diminishing other colors. And then I use many of those as the patterns for the backgrounds of my paintings. Why am I doing that? I suppose I'm doing that because I'm trying to draw a connection between African culture, African American culture, the decorative traditions that start in one place but end up in another. Many people don't realize that the patterns that you see in West African textiles actually come from certain parts of Europe, come from certain parts of Southeast Asia. The world has always been a place where different influences are bouncing up against each other. People from different traditions are coming together. And my work is trying in some ways to come into contact with that, to come into contact with the sense that none of us, no matter where we come from, are isolated in that space. All of us belong to a community that touches another community. All of us eat food that has a history that goes back hundreds of years to other countries. All of us have this global presence that sometimes feels very personal, but in a very real way, every small thing that we do has a global impact. And my work tries to point to that in a way. Even the way that people dress, the style of dress that's so common in many parts of American cities, now you see that in cities all over the world. The way that America is showing its culture to the world, many young people all over the world pick up hip hop, try to figure out how they talk about their own lives, how they talk about their own dreams, and then they create Brazilian ways of creating hip hop, Indonesian ways of creating hip hop, Indian ways of creating hip hop. This is, I suppose one of the cool things about art is that it can start in one place, bounce around, transform itself, and show up through the way that you choose to talk about yourself in a new way. At any rate, I want to thank all of you today for listening to what I have to say and to inviting me to greet you guys. And I wish you the best of 2021 and more to come. Good luck.